Tefillah, we're Chot Gimel. It's from the Degel Machne Ephraim. שמעתי מאדוני ובזקני, כי oisius bli pirush. So he's saying from his grandfather, from the Baal Shem Tov, that letters have no meaning. This is a very deep secret that goes back to the beginning of human speech. And the speech, as we create words with it, we create meaning, but the meaning comes from our own heart. And this is why the same people will read books at different times, and they will see completely different stories. Or they read a sefer at different times, and they'll see completely different messages. This is because the letters are receiving their meaning live. The heart is creating the meaning based on what it knew before. And then it builds from that a meaning to the letters as it's forming them in the mind. And so my words, for example, mean different things to different people right now. It's touching their nervous system in different ways. It's creating different reactions. And so it's objectively different how it's hitting them. And the reason for that is because the heart is giving the meaning based on what happened previously. This is what gives weight to the words. This is what gives importance. This is what gives the attention to different places, to different words, to different associations that arise, all based on the history. What's the primary history that's involved in this process of giving meaning to letters? The primary history is pain and pleasure. This is what's driving the meaning to the letters. This is what's driving the associations. And so if I say a word that the associations to those words are pleasure, then the heart forms the sentence and the understanding in that direction. And if I say a word that triggers fear from pain, so then the meaning of the sentence is going to take on an entirely different face. And so this is how the world seems to look different all the time, even though we're looking at the same thing, and we're looking from the same place, sort of. We're looking from within the human biology. But the human biology is such that it doesn't see the world twice in the same way, because it's always changing, it's always formulating, it's always becoming, it's always maturing. So we're never experiencing the same moment twice. We're never experiencing the same experience twice, because our heart cannot create the same twice. It's not possible for it because it doesn't have the same tools available. And so this is in the Shoresh of the Amtok of all the dinim, that goes back to the Bina, which is before the formation of the understanding of the letters. That's the place of tshuva. Where is tshuva? Tshuva is going back to your innocence. But how do you go back to your innocence? It's by realizing that all the letters that you've given words to, in order to create that accusation of guilt, really you were giving it meaning because you were angry, you were against something. You were giving that meaning because you chose that interpretation at that time. Other people go through the same experience, but they don't choose that interpretation, and therefore they leave that experience differently. And for each one of us, based on our experiences and based on the areas where we have our sensitivities, where we've been wounded spiritually, where we've been susceptible to feel that something is wrong with us, so then we give meaning to words in that way, and we allow that wound to continue. Tshuva means to not allow any wounds to continue any further, because we go back to that original place where the letters have yet to receive meaning. Every meaning that we will give is based on a certain level. That level is already subjective. Beyond that, there's another level that gives another meaning. That in that level is the true meaning. And then there's another level and another level. And that's Ein Sof. There's no limit to these levels. The human mind cannot comprehend. And so when we go back to such places, the letters lose their meaning. How do you believe that you know enough to make an accusation against a human being? Have you studied the species to even know how it operates before you come with any conclusions? Do you understand its needs? Do you understand its environment? Do you understand the effect of the collisions between different forces within a human body, a human spirit? How that affects the spirit going forward? So how are you even qualified to make an accusation? What have you understood that based on that and just understanding do you come to a conclusion that there is guilt? There can be many explanations for wrong that are not guilt. Guilt is a specific form of accusation. Guilt says, this man should have done differently. I know it. And not only should he have done differently, he knows and he has access to that potential. Otherwise, what do you mean he should? You're arguing with God? You're arguing with what is? You're arguing with the Creator that made what is? You're saying that he should have made differently? If there's no access to it, it's not possible. So you're saying you're qualified to know that that person has access to a different manifestation. Otherwise, there's no accusation of guilt. And so the place to go back to, tshuva, is the natural place where naturally we would be had we had the intelligence in the first place. We only left that place and went into the exile of guilt because we weren't intelligent enough to understand the situation and understand why what is happening inside of us needs to be happening. And so therefore we allowed the interpretation of guilt to come in, to enter. And then the letters start accusing us. Ashamnu bagadnu, Aleph Beis Gimel. Why are the letters taking that form? The heart is taking that form. The heart creates the tone. The letters will dress up, but based on where's the heart is directing the letters to go in whichever direction. The brain will comply and provide words that prove the point that the heart is trying to prove. And the heart is deciding based on how it feels towards the situation. It's giving the interpretation right then and there. The decision is being made right on the spot, nowhere else. Not in any other time and not in any other place. This is what the imagination tries to tell us, tries to make us believe that no, these are ongoing conclusions based on these words. No, they are not. These words are being interpreted right now. Right now, this decision is being made, not any other time. The words that are being chosen and the meaning for those words are being done right now. Always right now. There's nothing else that's real over here. They could have chosen any other words and any other meaning to go with that. The heart chose it, and the heart chose it here and now, because that's what it wants. Why it wants that can go back for 1,000,000 years. But right now it chose to enforce that want. Right now. Could have chosen anything else. And so that's the secret of Dibur. It's the secret that comes before Dibur. It's the secret that tells us that that force that has no meaning, if we give it meaning, it takes on that form and that form becomes real. If we speak it out in a certain way, that way now becomes real on some level, and that level is also real because we believe it. We live like that. We have been designed to comply with those orders. That's the intelligence that we have over the animals. That when we hear the words and we draw the image within our mind, within our perception, that gives orders to our body. Even if we reject what we just drew, even if we reject it, we still created that imprint. We still created that reality. Everything now somehow has a relationship as opposed to this. How does it look? And so it has a major footprint in our perception, even if we completely rejected it and we don't believe in it and we don't want it and we disagree. We dressed up as it in order to argue with it. Spiritually, we were it for a certain amount of time, for a certain amount of space, with a certain amount of capacity, of energy, of life force. we dressed up as it in order to argue with it, of course. But it's there. And this is how we're constantly formulating ourselves. It's not just the letters that don't have any meaning and we're giving it meaning. It's everything that happens inside of us. Everything that happens inside of our body. If we have a sensation, who is going to tell us what that sensation means? We're going to make it up. But whatever we made up, it has a huge impact. If we decided it's this food, suddenly this food less. We decided it's that food, it would have been that food less, and it's not necessarily related to a reality. We are giving it meaning as we are going. And we're creating conflict with things, and we're creating friendship with things constantly, with our pains and our pleasures, and our interpretations of what they mean and where they're coming from, and who is to blame or who's to thank. All these things are affecting our behavior. This is the nature of who we are. This is how we were designed to be. It's in the best interest that we are this way. Otherwise, we would really be a problem. And so this secret is a secret of the Mekubalim that relates back to the concept of tzirufim. Tzirufim is where we permutate the letters, and we're constantly turning the letters to create different meanings from the same letters. And this is to teach the mind the nature of speech and the nature of how we create the associations of speech. And the purpose of that is that we can release ourselves from the prison of speech. Speech has become a prison for humanity. Because Lashon Kodesh, which is the only language of freedom, is no longer spoken or understood. And so all the 70 languages are prisons for the mind, because they don't define the places where the mind really wants to go in order to serve the master, which is the soul. And so speech keeps the population in the lowest category of being, which is serving for a higher purpose. Originally, this was conceived in Egypt. The slavery in Egypt represents this constant serving. Everybody is building and building and building, and nobody has anything afterwards. After everything has been built, there's nothing there. We're still just trying to survive. The quality of life is not really there. Everything is external. But most of our energy is going to build. What are we building? There's no purpose. There's no reason. We're just building. We're constantly building. And so the language keeps us in that area, because this is what's been defined. It's a very practical language. It speaks about the very practical things. It doesn't really have a language for the spiritual. It doesn't have a language for what's happening in consciousness. Very few languages in the world still have even any reference to what's going on within consciousness. And so humanity lost access to the higher realms. A human being can also be a slave, it's true. He can also be a servant. But he wasn't designed to be that. He was designed to be some form of a king. And so the kingship has been taken away. The language of the king is no longer spoken. And so every human being that's going to learn a language is going to find himself in some type of a slavery, some type of a serving, in some type of a trying to please something else in order for him to have a place. There's no other choice. And so behind the dibur is a free man. Within the dibur, the free man can no longer justify his existence. He can't explain why he's free. This is why it says that the Torah, when it was given to us, the Torah is a shtar cheres. The Torah is our certificate of freedom. It says, hey, you're a human being, you shouldn't be serving anything. Everything was created to serve you. If the culture says differently, something is wrong with the culture. The culture has misunderstood the creature. It's like finding an animal in a zoo. This is not the natural habitat. This is not the way the animal was designed to be. Don't ask questions about a tiger if you see him in a cage. That's not a real tiger, it's a fake tiger. Don't ask questions about human behavior if you see them in a culture that thinks that they're here to serve. Of course, this is how they look. They've been placed in unnatural conditions, and so they're not happy. Their nature is not really being served. This is part of their nature. They feel offended by what's happening. And so, in that culture, the letters take on a certain meaning. In a different culture, the letters take on a completely different meaning. So that's what he received from his grandfather. The The next piece is from the Ben Parat Yosef, is from the Toldos Yaakov Yosef. He says, Shemati, ki kol teva nichlem l'kol ha'olam, v'divrei pi chocham Chaim. He says, I heard that every word includes the whole world. And this relates to what we've spoken about before. That when we wake up the spiritual power, the power that we manifest as speech, we're dressing up the infinite power. And so whatever part of him you're holding, whatever part of him you're playing with, that's him, that's all of him. It's like if you're holding someone's hand, you're there with them. And so in every word that's being said, again, the infinite light is dressing up. The infinite possibility, the infinite potential of being is taking form. And so that's the same as the creation of the universe. And not only that, if we were to zoom in to the details that it requires to create that word, in the spiritual realms first, how many pieces of information are being combined in the intelligence in order to come up with just that sentence, with just that idea, with just that word? How many different instances of reading and thinking and talking are being combined over here in order to create the information that's coming forward? So all that is massive. There are thousands, there's trillions of cells involved in these processes. That alone is a galaxy. And then if we take that and we just follow the effect of these letters, of these words, into the ears of the recipients and the ears of the one who's saying, the effect on the biology, the changes. Then at night, when the angels are rearranging all the information, what's going on there with those words? And then afterwards, all the words that are being affected by those words, and the people who are listening to those words. You have galaxies upon galaxies of activity from every word. This is the nature, this is the power that we were given, this is the leverage that we have. With such little expenditures of energy, we can shift worlds. This is what we were given for free. We have it all the time. We take it for granted. We don't understand the power. We're moving galaxies, literally, just with our speech. And it was made to be so easy on purpose. It wasn't a mistake. And so in every word is included the whole world. In every word is life. Life from the source that's taking form right here, right now. This is the place where we can see the biggest wonder of the revelation, is the intelligence that reacts immediately on the spot according to the circumstances. And where will you find that intelligence? In every human being. That's the biggest demonstration of the Creator. The Creator didn't create any bigger demonstration other than that. This demonstration, he said, any intelligent man will now understand. I don't need to prove anything more any further. If you realize that this intelligence reacts live to exactly what's taking place, and somehow manages to crunch that with all the other data that happened previously, including what happened to the grandparents and the great-grandparents, somehow even that's coming along. And so if that's not proof that everything is up to date and everything is live, then what else do you want me to say? What else can I add to the conversation? Kaf Hey is from the Tzavos HaRivosh. Da, ki kol taivi koima shleima. Every word is a complete koima. A complete koima means that it has the full stature of the human form, which means that it starts from the beginning, from the keter, and comes through all the organs, and comes out in order to become the word that it is. Everything that manifests comes through in this form. Everything that was created is created in this form. This is the form of all and everything. And so also every word is like this. And just like the whole creation started from the Ein Sof and came all the way into the Pratim until it became us. The same way this word started all the way from the Ein Sof and came through all the ishtalshlus from all the worlds and all the filters and all the different evolutions and revolutions and changes that humanity has gone through, and it came through all this, it crunched all that in order to come out now as a sentence from my mouth. There's no other place for it to come from. I came from there, the word came from there, and the entire universe came from there. We're all brothers and sisters. We all come from the same source. And so this is happening constantly, live. You want to see proof that there's a God? Look, the intelligence is alive. It speaks. And therefore, there must be someone that's alive enough to be able to go through this entire process all over again, constantly. Otherwise, what I'm saying wouldn't make any sense. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be able to formulate it. It just wouldn't happen. And it's happening. I, the conscious side of it, can't explain it, but the unconscious side is doing it. And we're all doing it. We know how to do it. We have the formula. We might not have access to our own safe, but we have the formula. It's working. Since it's a completely new manifestation of life, all of our energy needs to go into it. We need to fully say it. We need to call the worlds with it. Not simply half of us is there and half of us is somewhere else. Because it's a new life that's coming in. It needs to be met with the appropriate celebration in order for it to be a complete manifestation of life. If there's not enough power creating it, then if there's not all this power in it, it's like Chas Shalom by a human being, that if it's not done properly, if the parents are not in the proper mindset, or something happens while the child is being created that's not what it needs to be, then the child has less life, has less access to life, something is missing. So he's saying like it's a missing limb. Doesn't mean necessarily physically, but in all the other ways, that it's something that's not complete. It's not a full manifestation of Dibur. And therefore, it's a misrepresentation of what a human is. And then, in a certain way, it's a waste of energy. Why say those words if you're not really saying them? If your heart is not in it, then why dress up as that? המכוון בתפילוסוי, בכל הכוונס הידוע אצלוי, אין המכוון רק אוסן הידוע אצלוי. This is from the Tzvos Ribosh, this is Chavov. And someone who creates intention for his prayer, it doesn't matter how much he learned. Maybe even he learned Kabbalah, maybe even he learned Arizal. And he knows how to be mechaven, and he has the deepest kavanas. He says, after everything is said and done, his intention is limited to his knowledge, because he's directing himself in a very specific way. And so to the extent that his knowledge is on a high level, okay, so he has access to high levels, but that's it. It doesn't go beyond that. If he somehow awakens a bond, a relationship with the word, he wakes up his relationship to that word. And then, when he says the word wakes up all the intentions. He's not giving it the intention. He's not saying what it needs to be. He is allowing the word to shine to its full potential. So then, this will include intentions that this person could never have known even exist. Because between his heart and the word, there's enough power to wake up the entire world. The only one that's getting in the way is his intention, usually. Because that's so limited to here and now, it's such a low-level interpretation of what a human being is, that it's very distant from its full power. It's not really imagining what a word can do. And so when the word is being said just with a deep connection to the word, by awakening the power of the word, and even more, awakening the power of the one who dresses up as the word, that power can transform everything. The power that dresses up in the word is the power that knows all languages. It's the power that creates meaning behind language. In each word, we need him in order to utter a word. Otherwise, without that force, there's no speech. All the elements of speech can be there, and without that force, who allows us every moment to interpret meaning into these sounds, we can't speak, we can't formulate words, we can't understand words. And so that form is always there, and when we attach ourselves and connect ourselves to the source of all forms, then we're awakening a power that's deeper than any intention we could have had. Any intention we could have had is limited, is small, compared to our real nature and our real power, and what we are really waking up when we are saying any utterance, any sound. What's shaking in all the worlds, in the worlds of meaning especially, and the worlds of meaning are the highest worlds. The worlds of meaning are the reason why everything that exists physically exists. It's never the other way around. And so when we shake things, we shake them in the world of meaning. When you shake something in the world of meaning, that's bigger than if you were given all the galaxies as a gift. Because the world of meaning is against all the galaxies, like the ocean is against a drop of water. In the intensity of its existence, in the power, in the meaning that it contains, in the reasoning of why everything that is in the physical world is the way that it is. This is just the external garment. If the external garment of the king is like this, what do we think the king is? What do we think his power is? This is just a little demonstration. This is not even the king. This is not even the town or the city of the king. This is not even the country of the king. And yet look how massive it is. When we go to the world of meaning, we're going a step closer to the king. The king is the intelligence. The intelligence first had the meaning and then created all the details. The meaning is higher. The meaning is closer to him. The meaning is the life force that lives inside the physical realm. Just like the soul is so much bigger than the body, the meaning is so much bigger than the physical form. And so when we attach ourselves, we connect ourselves to the source that gives meaning. He was the same force that gave meaning in the mind of Avraham Avinu, the same force that gave meaning in the mind of Moshe Rabbeinu. The same force is giving meaning in our mind. According to our ability to receive from him, he is teaching us. He is giving meaning based on our capacity to contain the information and to grow from it. His goal is to make us intelligent. He's in charge of our evolution. He keeps on giving meaning every day differently based on how we're behaving. And that meaning gives us our chemicals, gives us our food, makes us feel good or makes us feel bad. It's the meaning that we give to the words. That's what's driving how we feel. That's what's driving how we are interacting with others and how they feel. And it's all by choice, and it's all being chosen now. It wasn't chosen ever before. Even if I'm repeating something that I've been doing every day since I've been born, I'm still choosing to do it now as I'm doing it, and that's the only time. I couldn't have chosen any time before to do it now. Only now I can choose. I can tell myself, I would like you to do something for me tomorrow. Tomorrow doesn't have to listen to me. Tomorrow has its own thing. It's going to decide for itself what it wants. And that's the way it should be. Who am I to tell tomorrow? Tomorrow is smarter than me. Tomorrow knows what I know. I don't know what tomorrow knows. And so when we go back to before the meaning, then we get to a higher meaning. When we realize that the way we have interpreted is not necessarily the only way to interpret, then we have access to so many more interpretations, so many better interpretations. And so, all the intentions that could possibly have meaning in this world, in all the different dimensions, in all the different worlds, they're all being woken up when he's saying the word with dedication, with connection to the source that gives form and gives meaning to words. Because every letter is a complete world. When he says the word with deep connection, for sure he's waking up the higher realms. And he's making big changes, he's making a big impact on the spiritual realm by simply waking up the words. In the ancient world, before humanity learned to speak fully the way that we speak, very few people knew how to read and write. And also those who knew how to speak, they would speak very little, and they wouldn't be able to speak with proper grammar. They were making up the grammar as they go. Very few knew grammar. And so words were experiences in and of themselves. So if I want to wake up compassion, I can just say compassion. And I can say compassion as if I'm calling someone. I'm calling the spirit of compassion. And then if I really mean it while I say it, I will start feeling it. It will become. It will manifest. Because why not? I want to move my hand. Can I move my hand? Sure, move your hand. You're free to move your hand at any time. You can move your heart also. It's your heart. It doesn't belong to anyone else. If you want compassion, you can call compassion. Compassion will come. If you don't believe it will come, it won't come. Because it's your power. It's yours. If you don't believe you'll move your hand, you won't move your hand. It's good that way. But we need to learn how to believe and also how to operate within our spiritual side. How to wake up the spirit to different aspects that are required in order for us to face reality. And so, when we wake up the word, we're making a change in the essence. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. It's not sophisticated. It's very simple. He made it simple because he's El Rachum V'chanan. He's compassionate. He wouldn't want to make it complicated. If it was complicated, there wouldn't be fear. We think it's complicated, therefore we're in exile. But in the reality of how he designed us, he loves us more than we can imagine, and he designed it for us as simple as we can imagine, that everything we think should be a certain way really is that way. Just not in our world yet, because we don't know how to live it. But it is that way because otherwise we wouldn't expect it to be that way. And so we expect to have a certain experience. It's because that's what we should have been having. It's not because he was trying to play with us and say, oh, you're going to think you're going to have this, but instead I'm going to give you that. That wasn't the intention. That's us. The intention was that it plays out simply. If you say the word, then you come closer to it. Any word you say. You come closer to it. You create a bond with it. It creates a bond with you. It wakes up something in your spirit. It's alive now in you. And that's just the nature of life. It's simple. But it's so powerful. We can't understand it enough. We can meditate just on this all day for a few years and still not understand it enough. It's so simple, but it's everything. It's what it means to be a medaber. This is how the nefesh ha-medaberes takes form. And she's the most important nefesh of everything we got. Not only everything we got, everything in the universe, everything we can see. She is the reason why there is everything we can see. The nefesh ha-medaberes. And she works in a very simple way. Yet we are not simple at all. Elohim baras adam yashar. V'hemo bikshu cheshbonos rabim. So when a person speaks properly, For sure, he's making big shifts, big changes in the upper realms, in the higher realms. Every sound wakes up from above. Every sound wakes up in the world of meaning, associations. And these associations are running the world. In one human, in many humans, we can't see these angels, but they're there. They're there inside of us because they form our future. And they're there in the collective because it's our energy that's driving all the other species, everything that's happening over here. We're the highest transformer. Nobody can transform as subtle the energy as we can transform, because we have intelligence that no one else has. We have speech. And speech gives us power over all the realms, because through speech we formulate the product that's being produced by the entire zodiac. The energy takes form through speech. That's where it becomes concrete. And then we give meaning. Speech first, without meaning. And then we give meaning. That's how our heart is responding to the combinations of the letters and the energy that's being woken up within the spirit through these sounds. And so in every letter there's worlds. In every letter there's desire for existence. And we're playing with that desire. We're formulating that desire. If we give it the right form, then the intelligence is rejoicing with the form that it dressed up in. The spirit feels pleased by the sounds that it formulated, because it unites it with reality in a loving way, in a peaceful way. And this is the purpose of speech. Speech is the world that connects the higher realms and the lower realms. The human being is like the interpreter from the creator to the animals. The human being has to remember these languages, the language of the creator and the language of the animals, both of which we've forgotten. We speak some foreign language that has no other purpose other than keeping us very little, keeping us going in the same patterns over and over, doing the same things, and then complaining why life doesn't feel right. Why does it seem meaningless? If we're not going to create the meaning, if we're not going to tap into the meaning, if we're not going to allow the meaning to teach us, then we can't complain about things being meaningless. We've turned our back to the meaning of life, and therefore we're experiencing it as meaningless. When we will look to see the meaning of life, we will find if we have a thirst for meaning, it means that meaning has been implanted within. Otherwise, we wouldn't be looking for it. If we have a drive for something, if we have an urge for something, if there's something universal that we need, obviously this is part of the design. This is not some type of a mistake. And the design has answers, just like we see in the environment of every animal, that it has answers to the needs of the animal. Every animal has its habitat, and it exists in an area that provides its needs. Obviously, the human, who's the purpose of all of these animals, the purpose of all the habitats and the environments, his needs are built into the creation, are designed to be fulfilled in a way that's satisfactory to the extent that the human will want to rejoice. This is why we know that the Creator wishes nothing more than the human should be singing for him and rejoicing, celebrating. And so, this is not because he needs our celebration. This is not because he needs our thanks. This is because when a human being feels grateful, it's a sign, it's a signal that all his needs have been fulfilled. And this was the design of creation. And so, when will creation be complete? When human beings will rejoice. If they're not rejoicing, it's not complete. Creation hasn't been fulfilled. And so his desire for our song is not because he wants to hear us sing, it's because this is the result of the plan of creation working out, the plan of creation happening the way it was designed to happen. And when the plan of creation happens the way that it was designed to happen, that's when his desire is fulfilled. And that's when we feel grateful. So one is tied into the other. גם אם תפלוסתי, this is Chav Zayin, this is from the Likutim Yikorim, גם אם תפלוסתי הזקי ברורו, בוודאי מן ההבל הקודש שיוצא מפיו ויזדבק ויסחבר מן ההבל האלה והדבק האלה ונכנס האלה בתמידוס. It says when a person has a pure prayer, meaning that his speech is aligned with his soul, that the words are coming out from his heart. So it says from the holy vapor that comes out of his mouth, this will attach him to the vapor that comes out from above, that's always entering into the mouth in order to give us life. And so there's different levels within the air that we're breathing. And each level is doing a different function within the body. Everything is being translated by the body into life. But there's a part of the air that's literally keeping us alive. And that part is coming from the source of life. That part of the air, when we activate that part of the air, we're connecting to the source. We're connecting to the one that gives us life. And so when we say something pure, when we allow our heart to take form within words, then those words, that vapor that's coming out of our mouth, represents that life force that's coming into our mouth, that's giving us life. It's the expression of that life force directly, because it hasn't been contaminated by the lies that are manipulating humanity. It hasn't been contaminated by the interpretations that are not coming from the heart, that have some type of an agenda, that are trying to manipulate reality in some way. And so when it's not contaminated by those things, the vapor that's coming out is representing the life force that's going in. So that's what he says, "Bevadei min hahevel hakodesh hayotzeh mipiv," the holy vapor that comes out of his mouth, "Yizdabek v'yischaber," he will attach himself, "Im hahevel ha'elyon hadovek ha'elof," with the higher vapor that's attached to him, v'nechnas ele b'tmidus, and is always entering. K'ma she'amar Rabbeinu Zal Posik, al kol hanshama tahal eliyah, al kol neshima neshima she'odem noishe, v'yotze hahevel mimenu mitata le'ele, v'chazer es elov me'ele l'sato, ובוודאי בנאי כל ייחל ישחר בחלק אלהוס אשר בתוך אודם אל שור השוי. It says, Chazal say, Kol haneshama tahal eliyah. David HaMelech says, every soul should praise the force that gives us life, the intelligence that lives. And so Chazal say, the interpretation is, on every breath, al kol neshima neshima tahal eliyah. Every breath should praise. The fact that the breath is taking place, that's the root, the source of the praise, because the existence of a human being is so meaningful that the fact that we exist is a reason for praise. If we're having the experience appropriately, immediately this will be our reaction, that we will look to praise, we will feel like praising, because everything is going so well. Where do I say thank you? Where do I pay? Where do I sign? Where do I do something in order to return the favor? So this is a desire for praise. So every breath should be filled with that desire for praise. This is a sign of a healthy human being. Not filled with the desire of praise. Oh, something is wrong. What's wrong? Which organ is unhappy? Sometimes it's obvious. Not enough food, not enough sleep. But sometimes it's less obvious. Not enough love. Not enough intimacy, not enough companionship, not enough pleasure, not enough desire for life. all these different areas that we don't know how to put our fingers on, but they're somewhere there in the background. They're all alive. When the spirit is nourished, it feels a certain way. When it's not nourished, it feels a certain way. And the body knows. And so, when there's a desire to praise, everything is working. No desire to praise, something is not working. What's the problem? So, kol neshima neshima tahalal. You can't tell somebody to do that. That would be very cruel to tell someone, hey, you have to say thank you. What do you mean I have to say thank you? But I'm not feeling good. We don't care. Look what you have. Could be worse. Could be worse is not a reason to give praise, except if we're in a hostile territory. Next to our enemy, maybe. But next to a friend, could be worse is not a reason to give praise. Praise is when it feels appropriate. Praise has to be felt. The praise comes from the heart. The praise doesn't come from the words. The words are to get the heart excited and to allow the heart to release its excitement. And then those excited words, those are exactly the words that make extreme differences in the higher realms. So kol neshima neshima she'odam noishe v'yotza hevel men etat. Every breath goes the hevel out from below to above. And then chazer seilav me'el l'sata. Then comes a new shefa in the form of a new breath, comes from above, and now is going to be revealed from the infinite source, new life, new interpretation, new meaning, created now, created fresh. For sure, if a person wakes up this purity within him, easily will the divinity within be able to attach itself to the root, to the divine that is, that was, and always will be. This awakens the divine. To awaken the divine simply means to wake up from illusion. It's not miraculous. The illusion is more miraculous than waking up to divine reality. The exile is more miraculous. That human beings would want to go against each other and annihilate each other for thousands of years is more miraculous than that they would want to live in peace next to each other. And yet, that's exactly what took place. We're waiting for the evil miracle to end. This is a form of a curse. This didn't just happen. This happened because something was violated. Something went wrong in our evolution. And we became angry. And when we're angry, we can be bad news. And so the goal is to wake up the divinity within. The goal is to remind the beast that it's not a beast, and then it will stop behaving like one. And so this is the process that the Torah is trying to teach, is that there's an intelligent being over here that really comes from the very root. And if we will allow it to be itself, we have nothing to fear. However, if we will try to force it to be something that it is not, we have everything to fear, because it will retaliate. And when it does, no one is safe. It's not rational when it retaliates. It will do things that don't make sense. It's proven time and time again within history that humans will do things that make no sense when they're pushed into a corner. And they can do terrible things. And so we have to respect humanity for what it is. Why? Because it's a divine being that's trying to live within it. It has protective mechanisms. Some of those protective mechanisms will make it act in terrible ways, and yet it needs to be there. It's protecting a very important shipment. It's the future human that's going to be perfect, is being shipped through time, and it's evolving within us. And that human will be protected in any form, in any matter. In all situations, the human has some form of a response that's going to try to protect what's happening, and some of those might be extremely violent and unpleasant, even for the human himself that it's protecting. And so the purpose of any work, the purpose of every spiritual path is to reattach to the divinity, which simply means to wake up from the illusions that anything else is happening here, because it's certainly not. And it doesn't matter how many people are running around with uniforms and with whatever else. Nothing else is taking place over here other than the evolution of the divinity that created life. This is all that's happening. And those who are trying to help that along are attaching themselves to this truth and becoming more and more real. And those who are distracted from this purpose are just going through a cycle of unconsciousness. They're not really there. There's no one home. They're not realizing what's taking place. They're not part of the solution. And so when we are authentic, when we are real, when we reveal our heart in the right form, in a form that's pleasing to the intelligence that's creating that form, then we wake up the divinity within that wants to come into this world, that wants to live here, but it needs the required conditions. Our divinity, which is our real nature, gets offended by certain behaviors. And as long as those behaviors are in our environment, we can't have a manifestation of divinity because it will cause harm. And so just like everything else that we keep from ourselves until it's safe, we keep our true nature from ourselves. We cannot reveal our true nature to ourselves because the conditions, the environment doesn't allow for it. When we reveal our true nature to ourselves, when we speak from the heart, when we pray from the heart, we wake up that channel again. Within our heart, when our heart feels safe, that's when it opens. Within our heart is the root to our salvation. Because the heart can feel. The heart can tell us. But in order for the heart to feel and the heart to tell us, the heart has to feel safe enough that it can do so. And that we will know how to respect what it feels. That we will know how to respect whatever it is that we find out when our heart reveals itself to us. So as long as we don't care enough, or the conditions don't allow for us to care enough, the heart will not reveal itself. It will be dangerous. This is why usually when people suffer from the heart is when something is revealed to them suddenly, when there's news, or when there's a change in the environment, or something changes, and this causes their heart to have to put up with something that it didn't expect will happen. But the heart itself knows to keep from itself information that it cannot handle. Information can come from the outside that will confuse the expectations, and then the biology can lose balance. But the biology is in charge of itself. It will not reveal to itself things that it knows that it cannot process. And so it can happen when something is already wrong and then it just wears out and the body is more tired and then it loses balance. Or when new news comes in and suddenly the body is off the expectations and therefore it cannot control, and sometimes it can fail. But while the body is in charge of the information, the body reveals to itself information whenever it is safe. So if we want the heart to open, we have to work on making our heart feel safe. This includes internal work of our thought patterns and how we interpret life and how we interpret letters and what we think life means and how we look at other people. All this internal processing that we do has a very big impact on how our heart feels and whether it feels safe with information that it has about us and with the situation, what it thinks might happen, what it's really afraid of. And on the outside, we need to work on our environment. If there are abusive people in our environment, the heart cannot open up. And so we have to learn to deal with our environment in a healthy way in order for our heart to really feel safe. It has to feel safe from us, but it also has to feel safe from the people that we frequent, from the people that are a big part of our experience. And as long as the heart doesn't feel safe, it doesn't open. It tries to protect for survival in order to see maybe later there will be an environment that's safer, and then we'll be able to do it properly. And so all these are part of the protective mechanisms that are there to protect the divine being. Not us, not our opinions, not the little man, the man that we've created. It wouldn't be all here to protect him, because who is he? He doesn't even know himself. He's not even sure why he's doing it. But they're here to protect someone much bigger. They're here to protect the divine being, that as soon as this egg hatches, that's what it becomes. And so therefore, all the protective mechanisms, all the angels, they all know the secret. We're the only ones who are the ignorant ones. They all know why we're here. That's why they're all doing their tasks. And they're scared not to do their tasks. And they're scared not to listen to us. And yet we take ourselves for granted and we think we're nobody. And so we just allow life to just happen to us and we'll figure it out later. And that's not the way it was meant to be played. Because the power is now. Later, we'll understand, but that won't really help us change what we already did. What we did now. Now is the time to act. Now we have the body. Now we can say words. Look at the relationship between those who are alive and those who are no longer alive. That's all their toil, all their learning, everything that they created, all their spiritual investment. If we say something in their name, they get to talk. All that work. If you look at any book on the shelf, you know what it took for a book like this to happen? You know what a lifetime looked like in order for a book to come out of a lifetime? Not every lifetime has a book at the end of it. These were people who were very dedicated, they were very invested, who took it very seriously. And what's the biggest gift that they can receive? Why did they work so hard? So that we can think what they thought, so that we can say what they thought. Because then they get to speak again, even though they're not here anymore. That's their entire dream, that's their entire effort, that's their entire energy. They gave their entire life for this. They could have given it for anything. And they gave it for this, and this is the ultimate place where to give it. It's bigger than any mitzvah. It's bigger than anything else a person could do. All the mitzvahs were created so that we can eventually be wise enough to wake up from our slumber and realize who we are and do what's necessary to make this place livable again, to create a haven for humanity where a human being can really know that he's safe, that no one is attacking him on any level, not physically, not emotionally, not mentally, not in his beliefs. And this is the goal. This is what's been coming. This is why we're here. If this wasn't true, then we wouldn't be true. We wouldn't exist. If our story wasn't true, then, well, maybe we would wake up to reality. But if this wasn't true, if there was no divinity, if there was no purpose, if there wasn't something bigger, then none of this would happen. This wouldn't be true. This wouldn't happen for any of our interpretations. Nobody would invest this kind of energy, this type of investment in any of our interpretations of what a human being could possibly be. It's something entirely different. It's something so much bigger. It's something we can't even understand. Not even one sound of one letter we can't know how to appreciate. Even if we gave our entire life to try to understand the value of a sound of one letter, we can't know how to appreciate that. Because it touches dimensions that the physical cannot touch. And those dimensions lead to the king. Those dimensions are much closer to the king than anything we can find in any direction on the physical plane. So this is the goal, this is the purpose. This is why we have a Torah, this is why we have words. This is why we go through all of our struggles, is that we should make room for a divine being to live here? What does it mean that a divine being should live here? It means, number one, we have to respect the way that humanity was created to be. That's the first rule. If we think a human being is divine, it means that we can no longer speak about his shape or his size or his color. That's the beginning. Because if it's divine and we offend it, then there are consequences. Divine means ultimate reality. And a human being is the ultimate reality. Divine means the source of all causes. So when we interact with it, there are many consequences. When we interact with the cause of everything, there are many consequences. When we interact with a human being, there are many consequences. Not only the visible consequences, those are the smallest consequences. The real consequences are that we are making movement in a divine being, and that divine being forms itself within biology. There's no denying what happened. There's an actual objective reality of cells, nerves, hormones, neurotransmitters. Everything is taking place live, and there's a real count. We might not know it, but it's there. And one day, reality just is. One day there's no longer any interpretations of anything. Everything just is what it is. Everything just was what it was. And that's the beginning, that's the middle, and that's the end. On that we can have a million different levels of interpretations, and yet it doesn't change the actual events. It doesn't change the effects. And so this is what goes, this is what continues, this is what gets written down. This is why we're divine. This is why we're so consequential. This is why it's so meaningful, everything that we do. This is why everything that happens to us affects our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. That's how sensitive everything is. That's how real everything is. That's why it's divine. And so we have to learn to love it. If we don't love it, how can we make a relationship with it? Divinity means that we, not just we love it, we worship it. That's divinity. But first, before we can worship it, we have to respect it. We have to learn to love it. This is the form that the Creator chose. It was His choice. He was the only one that got to choose. And He chose it together with all the forces that create, that this is the best form. This is the best form that could possibly be for the mission that we are on. And this form explains the mission. This form is the mission. This form is everywhere, and it's everything. And it says it all. It's the root of language. It's the root of being. It's the root of existence. It's the root of creation. This is the form. This is the ultimate form. So the first step towards that form is to learn to respect the form. To respect the form in the external sense, that this is the design, this is the way, this is the best way. And to respect it in the internal sense, that when we see such a form, we have respect for it. We don't talk down to it. We are concerned about how we are making it feel. That's the first step, respect. If we can learn to respect, then we can learn to like and even to love. If we can learn to love, we could learn to worship. Worshipping the source. Worshipping the source that chose this form. And so therefore the form and the source are identical. The Shekhinah dressed up in this form. That's why it's called Tzelem Elohim. Tzelem Elohim means that this is the form that He chose in order for us to have a relationship with Him. We're not the form, and He's not the form. The form is the communication between us and Him. We're receiving it, and He's giving it. And what is He giving us? He's giving us this form, the Tzelem Elohim. He's giving us His form, the form in which He created all worlds. This is His stamp. This is how he chose to create, in this order, with these parts, with these relationships, with these functions. All of it. This is his masterpiece. This is what he fell in love with. That's why he made it. We don't see the full function of the form. We don't like it enough to invest ourselves in it enough. Quantity-wise with our time, and quality-wise with our energy. But this form has so many different manifestations. That's why he loves it. If we would see the form the way that he envisions it, we would love it too. Our representation of the form seems rather simple. It's not really functioning to full capacity. It's not even functioning to a fraction of the capacity. And so to function in full capacity means to wake up the divinity. This is the purpose. This is the reason of creation. This is why we're here. This is why everyone is here. It doesn't matter how busy he looks. He might have a nice suit and a tie and a briefcase, and it looks like he knows where he's running. I promise you, he doesn't know where he's running. Whatever his goal is, it's very temporary. It has nothing to do with the bigger picture. Because the bigger picture is divinity. No suitcase, no tie. We're all running towards divinity. It's the only place to go. We can play with our money. We can play for another few thousand years with our money. We can hand it around. And now I have it, and now you have it, and now you take it back, and now I give it to you again. Or we can reveal something within humanity that's going to make this whole game completely irrelevant. We're going to speak a different language. We're going to have different interests. We're going to realize the underlying drive that's been causing us to run and run and run, and we're just going to direct our attention at relieving that stress without running and running and running. Whatever it is we lack, we don't need to run and run and run in order to fill it. We can find the solution directly there and fill that lack the way that it was designed to be filled. We don't have to continuously distract ourselves from our problems. That's not the intention. So may we all gain access to our own hearts, to say the words, to connect to that vapor that gives us life, and to awaken our divinity in the individual, in the collective, and to reveal the glory of life. The glory of life is alive. We're just blind. So our eyes should be opened. We should see what's so obvious. And yet, our organs have to be willing, have to be able, have to feel safe enough to open up and see it. So may we all reveal to ourselves that truth that we've been keeping from ourselves. That truth that brings us back to our source, that brings us back to before all the meanings and all the words and all the statements that confused us. And we should each find our individual redemption, and together the collective redemption. May it happen soon.